Good morning. I'm your host, Laura Wagenknecht, owner of Mosaic Business Consulting, and you're listening to the Mosaic Life. A mosaic is a bunch of pieces that, when put together, make up the whole in a really beautiful way. And this show plans to discuss the various pieces of a business throughout different industries and how these pieces, when put together, can help develop a better, more efficient, and effective running of your business. To reach me, contact bizradio.us. Today, my guest is Justin Lund. And Justin empowers entrepreneurs to achieve peak profitability and financial freedom, guiding them to earn more, keep more, and work smarter. Boy, do I love hearing that. After transforming his own life from rock bottom, escaping foreclosure and a myriad of legal troubles to a 9-figure business. Okay, I got to know how you did that, puppy. He now shares proven playbooks and systems to help others focus on high impact work. Justin coaches clients through the unique steps needed to elevate from one level of success to the next, showing them how to overcome the obstacles keeping them trapped in their current state, whether mindset blocks or low value time wasting tasks, and adopt scalable strategies designed for growth. Boy, oh boy, Justin, I got to tell you, it's exciting to have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I got to figure out how you attain that 9-figure puppy, because I think we all would love to know that secret, right?
Yeah, well, we definitely can get into it today, but I will break it down to really three pillars. It's mindset, systems, and delegation. And then with that, you can redeploy resources back in more intelligently, and you can continue to achieve a higher level of efficiency, a higher ROI on tasks and time. And you can do that even while breaking free of that grind. And so many entrepreneurs, they get stuck in a grind mode where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like white knuckle. They feel like I got to do a little bit more. I got to stay a little later. I got to work this Saturday and then I got to work Sunday. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
often what gets them from A to B, but it won't get you from B to C.
Right. Well, and I'm kind of curious because you talk about your background of going from foreclosure. And so what journey did you have to travel to get to where you are today? Because that's a long journey. And what prompted you to do what you do today?
Yeah, great questions. So the journey of kind of hitting that rock bottom, I would say I had to give up excuses was probably the big one.
Oh.
And up to that point, through all the navigation of all the different opportunities and the failed attempts and the this and that, there was always a scapegoat that I was leaning on. And there was always some excuse and some reason why this didn't work out or that didn't work out.
Can
And
you give me an
so,
example? What might be an excuse that we think is not really an excuse, but is an excuse?
yeah, well, in my case, I had dozens of them where I would come up with an idea and then try to sort of hitch my wagon, so to speak, to somebody else. And with this idea, we're going to take their business and turn it into some new little side venture that collectively, as a partnership, everybody could win. But then as we're progressing, maybe they would cut the legs out from underneath the opportunity. Or I've had people even take the opportunity and kind of rebrand it as their own. So I always
Oh,
had some
wow.
narrative or some reason to say, oh, it was his fault that that didn't work, or it was the economy's fault that that didn't work. And what I had to
Mhm.
get down to, it was actually in my mother's garage after almost losing my house. We got it sold just before the bank took it back. And that's where I just decided that I had a little folding table and a space heater and thought, I'm going to sink or swim on my own efforts. And there's nobody to blame but me, whether it goes bust or is successful. And I slowly
Yeah.
started putting one brick on top of the other. So I think that's the big thing that I took away from that chapter of many years of failed attempts was get rid of the excuses.
Yeah, yeah. And it's such a big thing because I don't think people realize how much the time wasters we utilize really are a part of our daily life. And
Hmm.
yet, if we eliminate those, how much more productive we can get. And was just thinking about the Hurricane Helene that passed through here recently and
Right.
demolished Asheville. And the interesting thing was it gave me time to reflect on some of those time wasters I was using.
Mm.
And so I really appreciate what you're sharing because it's so true. It is so true that we don't realize just how much time we do waste.
Yeah, it's so many of us mistake action for production, and it just they are not the same thing, but it's
Yeah.
very easy to trick ourselves into that mindset where because we're busy, because we're moving around, we think we're doing things. And there was a stint in my life after my father passed away that I got to spend time with my brothers who were running construction companies and doing different things. I was the only child in the family that wasn't married. So I moved back in with my mother. And I had this unique 6 month window of time where I wasn't really working. I was reading a lot of books and doing a lot of things. And I came up with an idea, an experiment to try that. Instead of making a to-do list, I'm going to make a to-done list. And I'm only going to write things down after the fact that I did. And so I kind of experimented with this social experiment with my brothers and
That's
friends.
interesting.
I shadowed them for days and days at a time. And I would realize there was so much talking about how busy they were, what they needed to do, what all these appointments and obligations. But when I actually put a pencil to paper, there was often very little that got done. And so I began to adopt this paradigm like, I am going to focus more on, if I only get 10 things done, I'm going to celebrate those 10 things. And I want to
Yeah.
celebrate that I have this big chunk of time that I can kind of kick my feet up and relax and be, because that's better than tricking myself into thinking I'm busier than I really am. So that was my to-done list experiment that began to
I
open my
love
eyes to.
that concept. I mean, that's such a great concept because it's almost like because now you're looking at outcomes. Now you're looking at productivity. You're not
Exactly.
looking at busy. And it's interesting you say that because I do find myself very busy all the time, but am I really productive? Have I really accomplished what I've set my mind to do? That's fascinating. That's
For
a
sure.
great paradigm shift. I really love that. And so you shifted your mind, you've taken yourself from this dire straits position and now you're unsure. You're in that,
Hmm.
what am I going to do with my life?
Hmm.
Now tell me, what happens next?
So I began working with some different colleagues and friends to try to come up with some business ideas and started to get into a lead generation and marketing company. And I knew kind of the gist of the business. I knew that people would create leads that would go into other companies or their own company, and then that was the opportunities that they would make sales. So I got the general gist of that, but I didn't have specialized skills. I wasn't a software developer, but I was doing most of this online. For I was thinking, okay, if I can figure out a way to leverage the internet to get traffic to people's landing pages or websites to generate the lead so that they can get customer opportunities, there's this gap there. Now this is 2000, early to 2005, 2004, 5, 6 in that range. And so it was a different landscape. There was no Instagram back then, so that wasn't even a part of the equation. Facebook was new-ish at that point, so that was kind of just beginning. And I got into that business and began to figure out that there were these pockets of people. There was companies that advertised widgets and products. Then there were companies that did, say, email distribution. There were companies that would buy ads and deliver
Mhm.
ad optimization. But they were not the same company typically.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah. So if you're selling these widgets, excuse me, if you're selling these widgets, you didn't really have expertise in all the other things that got you the customers. Now I'm
Yeah.
talking small to mid-sized businesses, not large Fortune 500 companies, clients like that. And I started to find that there's a gap in the market because the person selling the widget or the company that's selling the widget often had a combative stance toward these people that were doing email distribution or ad buys or media. And they didn't really understand one another's business. So I thought my hypothesis was that if I can understand enough of that person's business and this person's business, and be the go-between to facilitate that relationship, that maybe there's some margins there in the middle. And so I really just became kind of a facilitator. And that is how the engine started to move. So I began to facilitate these connections and realize that if this person wins, this person can win with the right community. It's kind of like leveling the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that began to teach me just a lot of lessons. And some of my background and classes in psychology and different things, some of the books that I've read and how to win friends and influence people. And some of those things became very valuable. My sales experience became valuable and a component in that success. And I just began to learn that it's not many people that will really get behind the eyes of another and try to consider where they're coming from. And so if I could do that in both cases and then level that playing field a little bit and convey to the others a message or a narrative that we can all just get along, there was plenty of room there. And so I typically would negotiate around a 10% margin on the advertising spends. And those advertising spends started to grow and grow and grow and grow and
Right.
grow,
Yeah.
where we facilitated at first, it was just the communication and the payment of bills. And then we got into facilitating technological needs. Then we got into facilitating fulfillment and different things. So one company turned into two, turned into four, turned into eight,
Wow.
and it just continued to grow.
Fantastic. That is, I love the process that you went through, and I like the fact that you did your research first of all, and you studied to figure out, where that gap in the market was. Because I think that a lot of people have an assumption that, well, I have this service or I have this widget and everybody's going to love it. And they
Yeah.
don't really look at the market and that market analysis to figure out, is it really going to sell? Is it going to make it? And what do they need to do to make it, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that what you're offering is really, really critical in that, that whole scheme of things. But
Yeah, I like what you're saying, Laura. It reminds me of what our team here probably tires of hearing me say, which is the new ideas that come up. It's like, go sell it 10 times and then come back. Like if you can validate with 10 sales, if you can get 10 different people to
yeah,
purchase it, now you have demonstrated, not just hypothesized, but demonstrated that there is a potential for a market. Now let's allocate some time and some of our resources and put into researching market viability and total area market possibilities. And we can look at some of those things a little differently, but just because it sounds good in your head doesn't necessarily mean that there's a market or any odds for success for it. And
right.
I know that because of all of those aforementioned failures, they sounded really good in my head, so
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah,
selling them to actual people and providing a service that others found valuable and were willing to pay for again and again and again, uh, all that enthusiasm and excitement just kind of fell on deaf ears eventually.
yeah. Yeah, I can totally hear that. Yeah. And it's happened so often, I have to say, especially somebody who deals with more of the newer market, new business market. People have great ideas and great intentions, but to launch a business takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of forethought and planning that some people aren't willing to do. And so I really appreciate that. But I'd really like to also get back to some of the three things that you mentioned in the beginning of how we need to position ourselves and our businesses differently so that we're more successful. And if you could remind our audience what those three items you mentioned of how we can grow our businesses more effectively and things like that, that would be great, because I know they were spot on. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes. So the three pillars that I like to keep coming back to with all of our coaching clients, with all of our clients in any field, and even our team here that we just keep kind of beating the drum over and over, if you will, is with mindset, with systems, and with delegation.
Boy, that systems word, I got to say, the mindset definitely, the
Yeah.
systems definitely, and delegation. Oh, yeah, yeah. It is fascinating because when you have, and let me just play this one scenario. So when a person has a system in place, delegating is be easier because
Correct.
it's explained already. It's already defined. It's already laid out in a process of this to
Correct.
this to this, right? where a person who doesn't have a system can't really delegate because they don't know what they're delegating, and they don't know how to define to somebody, this is what I need done. They're saying, oh, I just need a social media post, or oh, I just need a social media campaign. Oh, just for what? Are you
Yeah.
trying to get more of an audience? Are you trying to increase your exposure? Are you trying to increase your conversion? All of those have different approaches, right? And so we want to think about what is our strategy behind that.
Hmm.
But to do that goes back to the mindset that you were talking about. So I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
love this. This is perfect.
So as far as the delegation and kind of touching on systems, I just want to give your listeners maybe a little hack, something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is a good thing if I can plant it in their brains, and this is the one thing they take away from this episode. I think it would be time well spent, which is if I had a magic wand, I would, and that begins to get our minds thinking more about what does done look like. And if we start defining things the way done looks like, and we get better and better at that definition, we start to go backwards and almost reverse engineer into a
Yeah,
system, right? So
yeah,
most of us are moving so quickly, and again, that tends to be because we're so busy, like we talked about earlier, that we'll say, well, we're not getting any social media done, so we should probably hire a social media manager. And if their first hire is a social media manager, I can tell you right now they're going to start losing money. That they may figure it out. Entrepreneurs are great problem solvers. That's what we do. We deal with a
yeah,
higher level of stress than most people can deal with. We deal with uncertainty at a higher level than most people can deal with. So we're usually willing to take a problem and say, give me a roll of duct tape, a couple of toothpicks, and an Allen wrench, and I can fix it. So that's great. What
yeah.
I try to do with our team and our clients, that our team tries to help our clients with, is utilizing that can-do attitude and that tenacity to jump in and solve problems, but to do it with, and those three systems, to me, I see the visual of almost like a recycling triangle. It's mindset comes up, systems come down, delegation comes over, and then you can kind of keep repeating that, because
Yeah.
as you learn this triangle of those three pillars, what you start to get as a result when effectively doing it is a little bit more time. When you
Mm,
get that time, you need to deploy the time into higher return on investment activities. And that's, if somebody gets the triangle down, they're like, okay, I got the mindset, I got systems, I'm learning how to delegate, but they miss that next area of deploying that time back into strategic areas. We've seen clients spend their time going shopping, and then they're like, wait
mm,
a minute, now I'm in debt more. I'm spending more money. I'm not making as much, even though I have these good systems and everything. Like, what's the deal? It's, well, look at your credit card statement. It's full of Louis Vuitton, and these are great. I mean, it's fun, and congratulations, you can afford all these things. But was that your goal, or should we deploy that time back? And that's often comes back to mindset, because they often don't recognize that part of that process we need to implement and instill an area of almost like self-care,
mm.
where take some of that time you've regained out of the discipline of the systems, and improving your mindset, building the systems, and delegating some of the tasks, and say, I'm going to get a massage once a month. I'm going to treat me because I
Yeah,
earned it. And by
yeah,
doing those things and balancing a little bit of that yin and yang, we can really start to deploy time back into the business and back into ourselves in a way that makes us go home to our family a happier person,
yeah.
and able to contribute more to our family, our community, our church, our the different things, instead of just grind, grind, grind.
Yeah, yeah, so true, so true. I love that. And I was thinking about the delegating too, and the mindset, which people who need control need to learn how to let go and trust. And that is a mindset unto itself. So I like that connection as well, that
Yeah.
this leads to that. So it's fascinating what you bring up. I hadn't thought about those three pillars, but it is really lovely how you have those together. That's
Thanks.
it's a really great model. If people want to, well, first of all, you never mentioned the company name, so let's talk about
Oh,
your company
sorry. Yes. Yeah.
really briefly in one sentence. Tell me, what does propel, and it's propel your, right?
Yeah, so it's Propel Business Services, but our domain name is propelyour.com. So we can propel your landscaping business, we can propel your bookkeeping business, we can propel your consulting company, we can propel a lot of your things forward to the next level. So we just, in a sentence, we help you break free from the grind and install intelligent systems so that you can get back and redeploy your time more effectively,
Mm,
efficiently, and productively.
fantastic. Wow. And so if people want to find out more about your company, how can they find out more? Where
Yeah,
can they?
come visit us at propelyour.com. We also have an Instagram. My personal Instagram is it's Justin Lund, where we do, that's probably where we put the most content out, and it's all around these topics. And it's just kind of following me around and talking about the different trainings and programs. I'm sure we'll have excerpts from this conversation there, and just kind of our methodology in dealing with our clients and our coaching customers, as well as the things we deal with as a team to train our team to bring these principles and concepts into play. And, we try to we do coaching, we do consulting to help people work through these things, but we also get more tactical, Laura. It's not just about, okay, do your best and try harder and we'll work through it. We have playbooks. I mean, that journey that we began talking about that I've gone through, it looked like a hockey stick for a while, but then kind of fell off of a cliff and it stopped. And I went through a period of time where I thought that I was fortunate enough to take some time off to raise my kids. That kind of turned into a period of drifting where I wasn't accomplishing a lot. And it was
Mm,
during that period of reflecting on raising my kids and the time in the previous businesses that I exited and different legal and litigation issues that I had to navigate. That's where I really started to crystallize the lessons that were learned there
mm,
into the playbooks that are repeatable and duplicatable. So something as simple as hiring, for instance, like a system by definition is something that you do again and again and again, right? So if you're
right.
doing something more than once in a while, if you're doing it twice a year, maybe it doesn't warrant really a big system. If you're doing it once a month, let's see
It
if we can
warrants
add
a
some
system.
efficiencies. Yeah, yes. So just one kind of an example is hiring people. That was something that just sucked a lot. I tried to delegate that initially without a system, mind you, but I tried to delegate that many years ago. And I started realizing the people that we were getting on the team were not the people that I wanted to be on the team. So I thought, as an entrepreneur often does, I better take control back of this task. So hiring people became kind of my Achilles heel. It took a lot of time, took a lot of energy. Oh, it was
Yeah.
draining. I'd put hours and hours into the review of resumes and I'd finally have one. And I'd be like, oh, this person is perfect. And then I would make the call to them and they'd say, oh, I'm sorry, I've taken another job. So
Yeah.
4 hours of reviewing flushed down the toilet, just like that. And
Well, yeah, and it's so funny you talk about a system because I actually have a spreadsheet that I develop for each job post that I help other employers hire for, and I'll go through that process, and it's exactly, and so then it's scored, and so
okay.
each applicant has a score, and then it's objective-ish. You can't be completely objective, but
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
try, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
So, and that's beautiful. I love hearing things like that where you can add scores and some of that work can be done first. I have found that most people, especially with those first 3 to 5 hires, it's more about the personality. You can
Mm,
teach people a lot of skills. You can't teach them a lot of character issues. And that's where a lot
right.
of entrepreneurs butt heads with their first hires. They'll hire them, they won't cut them loose soon enough, and they'll waste a lot of money for a year paying the wrong person to do the wrong thing because there was never a personality match. But if you can take somebody that you align with your morals, your values, your character, your personality, 9 out of 10 times you can teach that person the set of skills that you're trying to delegate if you
Yeah.
have the right systems.
Yeah.
So we have a hiring playbook that we give to our clients that is, it cuts down. I used to spend on average 25 to 40 hours per job opening. And I spend now
Insane.
at less than an hour. I do the interviews, the second interviews I do myself. But even when I'm doing the first interviews, second and final decisions, I would spend no more than 4 hours on the entire job posting. Candidates went way up, quality went way up. Alignment to our company's values went way up because I'm doing the
Mhm.
interviewing. And so it matched with what I wanted it to be. And it's a 3-page Google Doc on how to hire people. It's
Yeah.
using AI to help you write the ads. It's getting the ads posted on the job boards. I mean, you follow any person with any kind of computer skills can follow that Google Doc and they can successfully hire candidates for any role in their company in a couple hours.
Yeah, yeah. And I love how you're talking about it. And it's truly successful if they're following their system. But the key that I really want to bring people back to is the fact that you talked about hiring by characteristics and
Yeah.
work ethic and things like that, which are
Yeah.
critical to the business, much more than their skill set. Totally
Yes.
appreciate that. Yeah. Well, and so I really do appreciate everything that you're sharing. It's wonderful. And people can reach out to you again by contacting propelyour.com, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I
Or
really,
if you need anything, you could also follow us on Instagram and message us there if there's something. And Laura, I was just thinking, since we're talking about hiring, if anybody is experiencing that challenge, you would like our playbook, just message me on Instagram. Go to It's Justin Lund, follow me, and message Laura Hiring to me, and I'll just send you the Google Doc. If that's something that would be helpful for your business, it's yours. Like, just let me know. I'll send it over to you.
fantastic. I love hearing that. That's wonderful. And I want to thank you so much for spending time sharing those wonderful pillars of your business model, which I think is fantastic. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on our show. It's fantastic to have you here. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Well, and I want to thank you, the audience, for listening to the Mosaic Life. You can listen to this episode again and get this great content by going to mosaicbusinessconsulting.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.